Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kiev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
All right, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. Got my partner in crime, Kyle Hunter, here. And we have a wonderful new guest, Mr. Big Al McMorty from BigAl.com. And you can follow him on Twitter at BigAl_com. Al, how you doing, my man? It's getting chilly out, isn't it?
Yeah, well, not here in Los Angeles, but yeah, where you guys are, it's a little bit chilly. But yeah, right here, it's very pleasant.
In Arizona, I'm in Arizona, but it's like 47 degrees this morning. So we call 47 almost freezing down here, my man. It's strange when it gets that low. It's just that kind of we got that cold front going on. But I know Kyle in Ohio, 47 is probably a warm up at some point.
Oh, we got the flip. It's flipped around right now. It's like 70 degrees outside here.
Oh.
So, but give it time. We're going to be, it's going to come this winter. I'm going to be talking about below zero, and Kiev's going to have 60 and Al's going to have 70 degrees. I'm going to be pretty jealous.
Of course. It's just one of those weird days. My buddy that lives in Wisconsin always texts me when we have those strange days when Wisconsin is warmer than Arizona. I usually hear about it, so I can expect that a little bit later today if that's the case. But we have a massive slate this week of college football and NFL and a lot to cover. But before we get into that, Al, why don't you introduce yourself and the history of your site for some people that might not have come across it?
Oh, sure. Well, I've been in the business since 1992, so it's been a while. Yeah, I got into the business a long time ago. I was actually practicing law down in Dallas, Texas, and another handicapper by the name of Pork Chop. We kind of made acquaintance with each other, and he thought I was a good handicapper, and he actually had some contests back then. He called me the Phantom, and he had these Beat the Phantom contests where he said if anyone could beat me, they would get a free week of his service. And, I think we did it 2 successive Saturdays in college basketball season. One Saturday I went 11-4, the next I went 12-3. And then he kept trying to bug me to get into the business, and I kept saying no. And finally I got into the business. So that's how it all started. It was kind of unintentional. And I've been doing it for, 30 some years. And yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, I've heard of you for a while since I've been in the business for a while, and Kyle for sure. And I love your site. You have a lot of great articles. It's well put together. It looks like it was improved upon recently.
Yeah, it's the third incarnation. It was about 2 years ago we launched this version. Kyle actually sells picks on it as well. And we've got 20 handicappers, a lot of great information, a lot of handicappers with different styles. And, I think it's the best website out there for purchasing picks, just my humble opinion. But it's a great website, and folks can check it out. And pretty soon, I think in the next few days, we'll be launching odds pages and other stuff. So stay tuned. Awesome
stuff. Good. And it keeps building and building as this pastime, I guess you can call it, sports betting. It's turned into a business for a lot of people. Big Al's been in it forever. Kyle's been in it forever. It's going to just keep it on improving, but that's awesome. I love your site. I recommend everybody to check it out, but we have some very big games coming up this week. Kyle, it looks like a little weather coming in for college football, doesn't it?
A lot of weather coming in for college football this weekend. We've seen some massive line moves on a lot of these totals. I think it is justified in a lot of these situations. So you got to figure out, it's easy to say, man, I wish I would have taken that earlier line this week. But now that the forecasts are looking like they're kind of coming to fruition, you have to decide, is the risk worth still taking it, even though you lost those 5 or 6 points line value in some cases? I think it's certainly a case-by-case situation, but be careful because some of these line moves that have been bet down really hard, it looks like the weather will move through before the game starts as well. So even Clemson Notre Dame, I'm a little bit surprised that the line is staying down quite as much because it looks like the worst of the weather will be through before the game. Having said that, I'm not saying I like the Clemson Notre Dame over, just saying that I don't think that's a huge weather game anymore because the front seems to be coming through a bit earlier.
Yeah, that's true. And there is a few out there. It did call for worse on that one for sure. I just got a tweet that I believe in Purdue, they're telling people that the tailgaters, they can't have any tents out or anything. It's going to be that bad. So I don't know if that total can get low enough, my man. But this is something that we and you, and I'm sure Al, looks out for this time of year as things get colder and windier. As we know, wind affects football games even more than rain does, and we'll keep our eye open for that. But I got to tell you, we have some massive games this weekend, and we have a Patrick Backus request of North Carolina versus Virginia. Virginia is at +7 right now. The total is at 60.5. You know, Kyle, before like looking at this game, I would have thought, why the heck is this at +7 and so low for the perception of these two teams? So I'm gonna let you start and see what you have to say about this one.
So 7 flat at this point is what we're looking at.
At DraftKings, it's 7 flat.
Man, I got to tell you, I'm surprised it's settled all the way down to there. I'm not surprised it came from the 9.5, I think it was, down to 7.5 or 8. I'm not surprised, but 7, I am surprised. Virginia's games are just ugly. I mean, if you want to watch college football and watch good football, you don't want to watch Virginia's games. So we're going to talk about some other games here. I think you should probably tune into the other games instead of this one, to be honest. But that doesn't mean there can't be betting value. And Al, Kiev, and I can talk about some of those way under the radar games that sometimes people are like, why are you talking about this game? It makes no sense. But I've done well on games like that long term. So North Carolina, Virginia, and this one, Brennan Armstrong's kind of being wasted by a bad offensive system, really bad offensive line for Virginia. I think probably a bottom 3 or 4 offensive line in the entire country. They're giving up 7 tackles for loss per game. What are they going to look like against this UNC defense, though? Because as bad as the Virginia offense is, the UNC defense is just about as bad as that. North Carolina games are high scoring all the time because North Carolina is so good on offense and that bad on defense. My thought in this one is Virginia's special teams play concerns me a lot because that's how they've blown a lot of games. They have these games where we like to look at those after the fact and say, you know, the box score, what's it look like compared to the final score? Well, Virginia's had a lot of these quote unquote misleading games. But if you're really bad on special teams, you're probably going to have more of those games than a lot of the other teams because, you know, you're going to find ways to lose games. That's what they've been able to do. Virginia is actually first in ACC play in yards per play allowed. So they are good on defense. I think that might be a bit skewed, though. They played Georgia Tech with the backup quarterback. Remember, Sims got hurt in the first quarter. Gibson was just atrocious the rest of that game. They played Louisville without Malik Cunningham. They also got beat by Louisville without Malik Cunningham. But this is a Virginia team that is good at not giving up big plays. North Carolina has gotten a lot of big plays. I think Drake May is kind of flying under the radar with how great he's been this year. 29 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. If you look at PFF grades, he's done better than a guy like CJ Stroud. I'm not saying he's necessarily a better quarterback than him, but he's definitely better than most people think he is. He's been better than Sam Howell was for this North Carolina offense. So I would lean North Carolina, laying only 7 points here. I would also lean the over, thinking that Virginia kind of finds a way to score some points against this North Carolina defense. But, you know, I don't have a strong opinion on this one. So I'm curious what you guys think about this one too.
All right, Al, what do you think about this 7-point road favorite?
Well, I've got a strong opinion on this side. Let me talk about the total first. I would look at the over in this game as well. It's kind of a contrarian play. The Cavaliers have played 7 of their 8 games under the total this season, including their last 2 games, which totaled 25 and 26 points respectively. And college football teams that have played at least 6 line games on the season and at least 84% of their previous games have gone under the total. They've then gone over their next game 43 of 62 times when the line was between 52.5 and 65 points. Also, when you look at how teams do when they're off back-to-back low-scoring games where less than 27 points were scored in each, those teams have gone over the total 67% over the past 10 years. So I do think this will be a relatively high-scoring game. I do like the side in this one much more than the total. I like Virginia in this ball game. North Carolina blew out Pitt last week, 48-34, but the Tar Heels are 4-16 ATS. off a conference win, including 0-8 ATS when laying more than 6 points and 111 ATS on the road. I think this is a really good situational spot for Virginia, and I agree with the point spread move. I would take +7.
That is interesting. And I got to tell you, I was scratching my head because it looked wrong to me when I first pulled it out. But then I kind of dove a little deeper. Virginia, you're right, Kyle. They benefited by playing some bad teams at some bad times. But North Carolina, not really that much better. App State was a shootout. They could have lost that game. But you look what North Carolina's done on the road, and App State was one of those. Georgia State by only 7 points. Miami, with how bad Miami's looked, by 3 points they win. Duke by only 3 points. It's not like this has been a road juggernaut, and you're getting a massive 7 on this one. You look at yards per play, Virginia's actually positive at 0.55 net yards per play, which was a little shocking. UNC plus 0.8. So it's like, you look at that, that's not big of a difference. And you have the home team, a 7-point dog. Now, here's where the reason for the wins and losses and everything else. North Carolina has been good in the red zone, ranking 18th in success rate. And Virginia, terrible in the red zone at 126 in success rate. It's almost like they're the Atlanta Falcons of a couple of years ago. They would get to the red zone and completely crack out. But, from a betting standpoint, that kind of shows value on the team that can move the ball, which is Virginia. Virginia moves the ball. They just don't get in the end zone. I kind of came into this thought I was going to be betting North Carolina, but I went to a no opinion at the 7. So I think anybody that got the over 7 probably has some value, guys.
Makes sense. Virginia on paper has been a bit better than their final scores. It's just a question of, can they finish the deal? But in this case, you're getting the points. I like the over better than I like the side here, but interesting to hear the multiple viewpoints.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely don't disagree with a home dog this big. And you're right, Al, the situation does favor Virginia. North Carolina coming off that easy blowout against Pittsburgh. They could, still be celebrating that. So Virginia now just needs to punch it in the red zone. And maybe this is the game where they get up to do it. They're still in bowl contention. They are not past 6 losses here. So I kind of look at that as well. Let's move on to the next game. And this game is massive. Tennessee versus Georgia. I wrote down Georgia -8, total of 66, maybe 66.5 in some of the books here. I'll pull up the updated odds, but I'll have you start it out, Al. What are your thoughts on maybe the biggest game of the weekend?
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest game of the weekend. Probably the biggest game that we're going to have this year. It's said that defense wins championships. And a lot of times people will say things that sound good, but actually aren't true. It's actually one of the things that is true. And football defense does win championships. And Georgia has the better defense in this matchup. They're giving up 10.5 points per game. Look at what Tennessee's doing. Their defense is allowing 21.0 points per game. It's true the Vols have the higher scoring offense. They're averaging 49.3, while, Georgia's getting 41.7. But when you take a look at how teams do that are both undefeated in matchups of those unbeatens, when they're at least 6-0 or better, the team with the better defense has covered the spread in those matchups over the last 43 years, 60% of the time. The team with the lower scoring offense has covered the spread 63% of the time. And if the team has both the better defense and the lower scoring offense in those matchups of unbeatens, they've covered the spread 71% of the time. So I really like the Bulldogs in this matchup from a technical standpoint. I'm going to lay the 8 points.
Laying the 8 points. Interesting, Kyle. Well, I do agree. This is the biggest of the weekend, maybe the biggest of the year. What are your thoughts on this massive matchup?
Yeah, biggest of the year so far, for sure. Ohio State, Michigan will be a really big one at the end of the year if those teams keep winning, for sure. But at this point, you've got number 1 and number 3 from the college football playoff rankings. Number 1 on the road, getting 8 points. Josh Heupel's teams have been a machine in the first half, long term, 29-9-1 against the spread in the first half. So it'll be interesting to see how Tennessee starts out this game. I think it was super impressive that Tennessee blew out Kentucky last weekend. That was a bad spot for them. Didn't matter. Will Levis.
I thought that was a good spot for Tennessee.
If you're talking about look ahead, though, I mean, if they look ahead to this
Well,
game,
there.
uh,
Okay, go. I'll talk about look aheads in a second.
sure.
I can talk about
Motivationally, if you
now.
think there's
I could talk about now real quick. I mean, there's actually
yeah,
no such thing as, at least if you look at the data, there's no such things as look aheads. I mean, the data doesn't bear it out. If you take a look at how teams do, for example, the week before they play the defending national champions, going into last week, I think it was 255 and 197 ATS. Now it's
nice.
256 and 197 ATS. And I've looked at it across both NFL and college football. I've looked at it every which way you can. And it's a little bit noisy, but actually teams play better the weeks before big games and they play worse.
That's an interesting number. I wonder if the market just adjusts for look aheads from all of us just chirping about it over the last.
I think it's been a myth for decades and decades and decades. And because I mean, I look at the data going back to 1980. There's a lot of myths that abound in sports betting. That's one of the bigger ones. I was joking about it last week with someone who said, he said, this is a sandwich game. And I said, there are letdowns. There's no such thing as look ahead. So I said, it's an open face sandwich, but it's not a sandwich game.
That was going to be my question is, so you do think there are letdown games?
100% letdowns, 0%. Yeah, there's letdowns 100%. If you look at the data, there's no such things as look aheads.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm glad I didn't actually bet Kentucky. It was a lean of mine last week for sure. Will Levis looking that bad surprised me quite a bit. And I do want to say, I mean, how is Will Levis ranked so high by the NFL scouts at this point? Can't throw for 100 yards against Tennessee. And a lot of the mock drafts have him going ahead of Bryce Young. I mean, just insane. I would hate to be the guy that picked Will Levis ahead of Bryce Young and have that kind of heat on me. To me, this game, I guess I'll be the one that stands out and say I kind of think Tennessee is probably the right side in this one. I like the under better. 66.5 is gettable at several books. I would have to hold my nose a bit when I bet under 66.5 in a Tennessee game because they have a way of making games extremely high scoring, certainly. But my numbers don't suggest that the numbers should be as high as 66.5. Now, as far as the side, I think the question is how much you trust Stetson Bennett. Is Stetson Bennett going to be able to do enough against that secondary for Tennessee? Tennessee has been good against the run. They're not very good against the pass. Georgia has Bowers, who's a tremendous weapon in the passing game, certainly. Not great wide receivers. I like rooting for Bennett. I still think he's a little bit more of a game manager than some people think. So to me, Tennessee would be the side I lean because I think there's plenty of variance in a game like this. It wouldn't stun me if Tennessee won this game outright. It wouldn't stun me if Georgia won by quite a bit, but Tennessee's getting points. And if I think there's enough variance, then I would probably lean Tennessee. Tennessee plays really fast. Georgia will slow the game down, isn't very explosive on offense. When you have a Georgia game with a team that's running the ball a lot, playing very slowly, I'm going to have to bet under 66.5 for something small at least.
Okay. It's interesting. So this moved down to 65 too. And I just shared the odds. It was 8.5. Georgia minus 8.5 and 65. So it looks like some people agree with you, which is interesting. That just makes me look towards Georgia a little bit more. My number is like right in the middle anyway. It's at 8.5 from a power rating standpoint. But, I thought I was going to come in and bet Georgia. I'm just not there yet. I feel that Georgia's banged up but it's not like they don't have 5-star and 4-star recruits coming in. Sometimes you see the freshman kid that was a 5-star recruit go in and do better than the guy that we thought was great before. And you've seen that a lot of times with Alabama. But, I am that sucker that bet Kentucky last week, guys. And I will tell you, it wasn't necessarily because of the look ahead. It was because of Kentucky's past performance against Tennessee. They were in a shootout last year. But I did also remember betting Tennessee against Georgia. Tennessee jumped them last year. And Georgia just kind of put the foot down. This could be one of those situations where Georgia's, looking at it like, man, Tennessee's getting all the news. We're not. This is a time we're going to put our foot down. And the reason I bet against Tennessee last year is because their defense ranked 103rd against the pass. I thought Levis was going to do a little bit more than that. Tennessee's defensive advanced metrics do not look that great. And, the reason I faded them last week was because of that. Why would I get on them now if I faded them last week and lost? There's still reason to my Kentucky bet. So in my opinion, this is going to be a great game to watch. I almost think maybe I was almost looking to a Georgia team total over because I'm not buying Tennessee's defense yet. But I'm not even sure if I want to get there. I think this is just going to be a popcorn game for me, and just completely enjoy it. We don't have to bet every game. Isn't that right, Kyle?
Sure, yeah. Some people think that way, but you definitely don't have to. That's why a lot of times I have plays on Troy and other teams in the Sun Belt instead of games like this.
Yeah, it's good. I can't wait to watch this. I'm not gonna lie. It's going to be a wonderful game. It's going to tell us everything we need to know. And the one loss of this might even still get in the college football playoffs because
Absolutely.
right now in Michigan with one loss probably would not get over them based upon their non-conference. You agree, Big Al?
I mean, I think Michigan has to beat Ohio State to get into the playoffs. If they don't, they're out.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with that. Let's move on to the next game then. And this game is probably the second biggest game, and it's still in the SEC. Alabama versus LSU. LSU about 13.5 right now is my number. I'm just going to pull it up here to make sure that I'm consistent with what we're telling people. And yes, it's 13.5, a home dog, 56.5, a little bit of a low total. Now I have a play on this that I'm going to give out, and I'm going to go first, so I'll put myself out there. This has been a very interesting game, not just because of Alabama's one loss, it's also because of LSU and the way they kind of turned it around. Alabama's a little weird the last couple of years with Bryce Young, and he's a fantastic quarterback, probably a top 5 draft pick. I had him at top 2 before the season. Now I'm saying top 5. We'll see. I'm not sure where that's going to all end up, but Alabama just shows that weakness too often to me. Last year, Texas A&M. This year, Texas A&M without Bryce Young was pretty close to beating them against Texas. Again, obviously Tennessee was a shootout. They did get it right against Mississippi State, which I think was a little bit overrated myself, especially coming back in a big bounce back spot at home. Metrically, Alabama 2.11 yards per play advantage. That's big. But LSU, they're kind of creeping up in the advanced metrics, ranking 12th in offensive EPA, 43rd on defense. Is this spread justified? A night game in LSU? I mean, this is a massive spread in LSU. In Alabama in the past, guys, has had problems against running quarterbacks. The Tide's rushing offense only ranks 60th in success rate. I was looking at some of the advanced metrics for Alabama. Their adjusted line yards on offense only 120th. They're not getting the push they normally do. I don't know. I like LSU here. I took them at plus 13.5. I think this is too many points. I think just the name Alabama is ringing a little bit. I'm not going to lie. My power ratings have it 12, so I'm not way off. But I'm also looking at the night game. I'm looking at the spot. Obviously, LSU off the bye as well. I think that just on their legs, Daniels is going to get some first downs here, running the ball. LSU coming off the bye. Death Valley, I'm taking the points. Al, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you. The one thing that you touch upon that gives me pause is that Alabama is a one-loss team. When you take a look at how one-loss teams do that are, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, in certain situations, they do quite well. And that was the only thing that I had to get over to, pull the trigger on LSU. And I actually did get over it. And I do like LSU, but that did give me pause that Alabama was a one-loss team. You mentioned that both teams are coming in off the bye week. That's important. You take a look at how rested home dogs of +7 or more points do. If they're off back-to-back wins, they've gone 47 and 21 ATS, including 38 and 12 ATS versus foes who won their previous game by 7 or more points. They're scoring a lot of points. I love taking home dogs that can score. Home dogs off back-to-back straight up and against the spread wins. If they scored 90 or more points in the previous 2 games combined, they've covered 65% over the last 43 years. So again, I think LSU is in a really good situation as you think. Outside the fact that Alabama's a one-loss team, I think LSU is a really good play.
All right, Kyle. Al and I see the same thing. What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, I only disagree with one thing you said, Kiev, and that's I think you're underrating Bryce Young. And this sounds strange for me being a Buckeyes guy. I feel like I'm kind of out there on an island as a Buckeyes fan that I think Bryce Young's the best quarterback in the country, at least for a college quarterback. I just think that you can't blame some of those things on Bryce Young because of the offensive line not being nearly as good. They also lost a ton of receivers from last year. They really, let's not forget that Alabama doesn't have Ohio State wide receivers on the outside. I think Stroud has a lot more talent around him, and I think he has a better offensive line too. So just think that Bryce Young may be a bit undervalued. Now, having said that, I think Alabama has several weaknesses. We've also seen them have a ton of penalties, some crazy. You remember the Tennessee game. I still can't believe the play where the guy tried to pick up the punt. I mean, just some crazy mistakes. There's some weird things that makes Nick Saban go insane, and you can't blame him. Just ridiculous mistakes that cost them the game. If they keep doing stuff like that, they're going to lose another game. As far as this game in particular, I think a lot of it has to do with what you think of Jaden Daniels. Do you think Jaden Daniels is going to have success here? LSU's best offense, let's be fair, LSU's best offense is Jaden Daniels scrambling. It's like kind of a scramble play on a pass, and he gets 15 or 20 yards. He's excellent at that. He's not a great passer, but I think it kind of sets up pretty good because that's what Alabama's been bad at defending, is mobile quarterbacks that, kind of make something happen. Well, that's what he can do. I think 13.5 is a lot of points. I kind of think the total is a little bit too low at this point. I think both teams will score here. Not a strong thought from me, but it looks like I have 59 for this one. So I kind of like the over a little bit. I think I like LSU better. I think this probably is a single-digit game. I think Alabama probably wins this game because they do have more talent overall, and I think Bryce Young kind of wills them to a win. As a Buckeyes fan, I'd love to see Alabama lose this game, so hopefully I'm wrong about that. But LSU plus the points, I think, is a good look. And I see there's a comment in the chat over there. There's certain home venues that you guys weigh heavier than others. If so, which ones? Well, one of them is the game we're talking about right now, especially night games. This is on my bucket list. I'd love to see a game at Baton Rouge at night. Apparently just fantastic setup. I think Utah would be another one, Salt Lake City with the elevation and the great home crowd. There's certainly several. You like to look for elevation or long travel spots, but in general, I think that home field is overvalued. You've seen road teams do better against the spread in the last few seasons, so be careful giving everybody the 3 or 4 points for home field advantage.
Yeah, you brought up the total, and I don't disagree with that. It seems way too low in this situation. These are offensive teams now. At least Alabama certainly is. I know their defensive success rate's been good lately, but man, I mean, I like the way LSU's putting up points. You saw it last couple of weeks. It does seem low to me. I'm not seeing a lot of weather coming in either, Kyle.
No, I don't see weather as a big issue here. There's plenty of games that have weather, but this isn't one of them. Looks like this should be good conditions. I think there'll be big explosive plays from both teams. We've seen Alabama's games have a lot of those so far this year. I think Daniels can make things happen with his legs. LSU needs to commit to making sure that he does run it enough here or they won't have success, because I think they just drop back and throw it constantly. It's not a recipe for success.
Yeah, most definitely. And Jason, yeah, obviously Penn State, amazing home venue there, especially at night as well. Camp Randall in Wisconsin's always been a great home venue, and Clemson, fantastic home venues as well. I think there's some bigger home field advantage. UAB actually is a big one. I've noticed. I did some studying about that before the season started, and Action Network had a nice little article about it as well. And UAB seems to be covering by a lot more at home. So those are just a few off the top of my head. Al, any home venues in the top of your head?
No, but actually, I could probably look up and see which team has the best home point spread differential over the past. You tell me the time frame, I can tell you who the best ones.
Go back like 5 years. 5 years is fine.
5 years. That's small sample size, though.
10 years then.
I can. We can keep talking. I can try to dig that out.
Sure. Yeah. Keep talking. And yeah, that it's just a weird low total here, and I'm not seeing a ton of weather in LSU, so it's just it makes a little bit no sense to me. I would consider taking an over for sure, and I might be getting to the window with that. Hey, Kyle, just real quick before we get, well, I was looking this up. Washington tonight.
I just realized I can't. I can only go year by year. So I can tell you at the end of the season what a team's points per differential was at home, but I can't look at it in the aggregate over 43 years. I might have to have my programmer make that change.
Well, we'll be following your Twitter to see what that is then, if you can possibly throw a number out later if you end up getting to it. So that'd be fantastic. Kyle, Washington tonight, interesting. They're about 4.5-4-point spread. It looks like a little bit of rain tonight. I just real quick, since it's tonight, Oregon State's coming in. I believe Chance Nolan is very questionable. I think the spread was a little too big with Nolan if he plays, but maybe not if he doesn't play. Any thoughts quick on tonight's game? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. I think Oregon State, not too much different with Galbranson at quarterback than Chance Nolan. Nolan has a few more explosive plays on offense, but he's also turned it over quite a bit. So I think Galbranson, they're a little bit more safe. Now, with the rain and wind, I think both teams will play more conservatively. This is one where if I could have gone back, I would have taken the under 60 or under 61 or something. At the current number of 53.5, I'd pass. I think that these two defenses are not good enough for me to want to take under 53.5 because I think even in the running game, there could be too many explosive plays. As far as the side, I don't know. This fits right into the game that I don't want to bet. Maybe would lean slightly to Oregon State in a game that I think would be a little bit more running and getting more than a field goal.
All right. Al?
Yeah, I mean, it's Cal took the words out of my mouth. I like the under a good bit, and the only reason I didn't give it out to my customers was because I missed the 6-point move. I wasn't going to give it out at the current number when it was sitting at 60, a couple days ago. But I do like the under. I actually think it is worth playing tonight, but I just didn't make it an official play.
All right, fair enough. That is my on the spot college football thoughts on this handicap tonight. Let's move on to the NFL then. And we always cover the night games, the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. And we have a pretty big spread here. This is the third double-digit spread of the weekend with Kansas City hosting Tennessee, and it's at about 12 points right now. The total of this game, I'll pull up, is 45. So pretty big spread, medium total for the NFL this year. Now, my big question is Ryan Tannehill playing this game? I mean, I expected him to practice by now, guys, but he missed Thursday, so we'll see what's happening today. Al, any thoughts on Titans versus Chiefs?
Yeah, and I do apologize. My wife just sent something to the printer, so if you hear some noise, it's my wife's
it's
fault.
Okay. I blame my wife.
Yeah, I mean, the other two games that were double-digit spreads both involved home underdogs, and of course, you always want to look at the double-digit home dog. They've done quite well over the years. Not so, it's a completely different story. Not that it's bad, but it's not as great as, double-digit road dogs are nothing special. So I like Kansas City in this ball game. They're playing with a week of rest in his career. Andy Reid's teams have gone 22-12 ATS when playing with rest. Tennessee's on a big win streak. If you take a look at how big underdogs do off long win streaks, if they're getting 6 or more points off 4 or more wins, they've covered just 34.2% the last 15 seasons. I think this is a really good setup for Kansas City, and I'm going to lay the points.
Okay, laying the points on this one. I'll go second. So this one's interesting to me because it's read off the bye, but with extra rest, is that a straight up record, Al, or is that a ATS record?
ATS, 22-12 ATS. I think straight up. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but yeah, that's ATS.
Okay, that's ATS. All right. So what's interesting to me is I think the Chiefs are a little bit better on defense than they were previously a year ago at this point, but they're a little bit worse on offense. But it's all about Tannehill for me because if they're going to be down, he's going to definitely give them a better shot to come back than Malik Willis. But at the same time, the Titans are a below average team. They were giant killers last year for some reason. This score was 27-3 in Tennessee last year. It was just one of those crazy games that I bet you there's a lot of survivor losses and stuff like that, but that was also in Tennessee. So you can kind of think of it, and we can get into revenge is real, Big Al, but maybe Kansas City's kind of remembering that and how they got blown out. In saying that, there is a path to victory with the Titans, and it's running the ball. It's controlling the clock, not giving Mahomes a bunch of possessions, and that's what they did last year. But, I mean, 14th in offensive EPA against the run, defensive EPA against the run. The Chiefs have improved their running game, only allowing 4.2 yards per run. What you saw last week against the Texans is what you saw the Eagles do to them last night. The Eagles just had all they had to do was really run the ball to Miles Sanders. I mean, the Texans could not stop him, and they couldn't stop Henry last. And that's why Malik Willis, when he came in and played, he only threw the ball 10 times. He was 6 for 10. So my worry is if the Chiefs get up on this, they can definitely keep compounding the score. But I see a path for the Titans. I think this is a live betting situation. If you see the Titans controlling the possessions of the ball and playing keep away, maybe the Titans are the right side. If the Chiefs get up, maybe the Chiefs are the right side. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think I would take the Chiefs in this game. I think the Titans are about as fraudulent of a good team, quote unquote, good team as you could ever get. People have talked a lot about the Giants this year. And how did they have this kind of record? But the Titans really are, to me, a worse team than the Giants. The Titans have a good coach for sure, and he gets them up. That's my concern if I were laying the points here. They have been good at being motivated and being ready to play every single game. I don't think they give up on him. The thing that I like the best in this game would probably be the under. If you look at Andy Reid's games when he's a home favorite, got it in front of me here. Home favorite of 6 points or more. Andy Reid, his team is 47-24 to the under. So what they usually do is kind of take the air out of the ball when they have a lead. I think this is one of those games where I know some people say this and it's kind of disputed, but I think it's pretty clear that Reid doesn't use their good plays against teams that aren't very good or when they have a lead. He saves those really good plays for big matchups. If they have a lead in this game, I don't think you see any of those trickeration plays or the special plays that are going to be especially something that somebody would want to see on film, right? So I think the Chiefs minus the points is my lean, but I hate laying that many points, especially when I think the game could be high score or lower scoring. So it's hard to get a margin if you think it's going to be under 45, or I see there's some higher than 45. So this is one I'm going to look at here later today, because I definitely lean to the under the strongest in this one.
Is trickeration a real word?
I just made it up.
Okay, I love it. I trickeration. I got to use that. Trickeration.
I don't know what the definition of that is, but we'll work on that for next time.
We'll put it on Wikipedia. There you go. We'll just make it up for people. I love it. All right, no, that's all that makes sense. And what's interesting? It's like you think total over. Now you're actually leaning under this game, which surprised me a little bit, but it makes sense.
I see too. Tannehill was limited in practice here, and it says he'll be a game time decision. I hate when there's game time decisions. You find somebody, it's like, okay, 1 minute before the game, you find out. That doesn't help us much at all. So I wouldn't want to bet the side for too much money, I would say, because, if you like the Titans, I'd be concerned, because if Willis plays, I think this is a really tough spread for them to cover. So I guess if you like the Chiefs, it gives you a little bit more ammo.
And the Titans are getting by in pure coaching. They're negative 0.6 yards per play, I believe. I have them below average myself in my ratings. It's just they're getting by some fortunate things have been happening to them, like in the Colts game and everything, and Matt Ryan throwing picks. It's just they're getting by with smoke and mirrors in a way. It's like they're the opposite of Jacksonville. Jacksonville's numbers should say they're way better than they are, and they're not doing it. So I find them polar opposites. So very interesting. Let's move on to the Ravens versus the Saints. Saints home dog plus 2.5. The total is 48. Al, why don't you get started on this one?
Going back to our previous thing, where I actually can look at each team in college football, their points per differential at home. I just can't compare them all all at once, but I can look at them all kind of one by one. So, for example, Ohio State, going back to 1980, 53.3% at home. They've covered the spread by an average of 1.47 points per game. LSU, in contrast, has a negative point spread differential at home. They failed to cover the spread by 0.25 points per game. UAB, they've covered the spread 55% of the time, but their point spread margin is a scant 0.17. So even though they've covered the spread a greater percentage than Ohio State, the average point spread differential is, about 1.26 points per game less than Ohio State. Anyway, enough of that.
Sure.
But,
I think that's a good point too, because it doesn't mean that LSU doesn't have a great home field advantage there. It just says it's already baked into the line.
Sure.
That's very possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's and since all we care about is what the line is,
Sure.
it's always important to, so it's absolutely true.
Yeah, and these are closing numbers too. Hopefully, most of us are advantageous and try to get ahead of the line moves. So, that's why we're supposed to have better records. When you do this professionally, you get ahead of things and you put yourself in good situations. That's what it's really all about. We can all agree on that one.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to distract.
No, Saints Ravens, man, you got the floor. Let's hear what you got for the Monday Night Football game. Total 48.
Yeah, the numbers come down. Earlier in the week, it was 3. Now I see 1.5s in a lot of places. New Orleans comes into this game off a 24-0 whitewash of the Raiders. And in Monday Night Football games, I prefer to take home teams that are not off losses, either straight up or ATS. So, of course, that's a situation here. And home underdogs in that situation have gone 56-30 ATS, including 22-10 ATS off an upset win. And then regardless of what day an NFL team is playing on, home teams off 24-point or better shutout wins, they've covered 59% since 1980. I do like the Saints here, plus the points. This won't be a play on my service or anything like that, but I'll take the points with New Orleans. I just wish, the line was still 3.
Fair enough. I like the Ravens. I don't know if I'm going to get to it either with a play myself, but I think the whole thing that happened with the Ravens is them going against the run by getting Roquan Smith. They were only ranking 24th in rush EPA on defense, and that was a pet. And then obviously you see what Alvin Kamara did last week to the Raiders. It was him that beat them, as well as their defensive line. I mean, I think Carr is still getting sacked right now, Kyle. I think I see him out there getting smoked. He was absolutely terrible that game. But it was also the Saints' really good D. I've been an opponent, not a proponent, an opponent of the hype on the Ravens this year. But I kind of start liking what they're doing now that Tyus Bowser's finally back. And that move to get Roquan Smith, I think, is something that can stop Kamara. And if Kamara stopped, you put the ball in Andy Dalton's hands. That's never a good thing, as you saw multiple times throughout his career. Kyle, being a Bengals fan, he's probably got a few opinions on good old Andy Dalton himself. So this is another spot where the Ravens, I'm not sure if we're getting the complete respect they should be getting. I'm not there yet, but hey, if I find a 1 or pick them, I might be on that side. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I think I like the over the best of anything in this game. In a dome on a fast track. Andy Dalton's actually been playing pretty well. He has thrown some pick sixes, but overall he's graded out well. They've been moving the football. Marshawn Lattimore is a big key to the Saints defense. So I want to check the final injury report to see if he's going to play. I think he's massive deal because they don't really have a deep secondary. Not saying that Lamar Jackson's the best passer, that he has a ton of weapons on the outside, but I do think they could get some big hitters if Lattimore's out. I think 47.5, 48 is a bit too low in a game like this. As far as the side, I honestly don't have any opinion. I have plenty of memories of Andy Dalton in prime time and struggling. So, I tend to try to think that those type of things are overblown. It's kind of a narrative type thing, but Dalton did it so many times that you really can't argue with that one anymore. It's kind of like you got Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins out there, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to argue that one anymore. So I think Dalton's a better quarterback than some people think he is overall. But do I really trust him in this one? I don't know how much I trust him, but I think both teams can get some big plays in this one. I think 48's a little bit too low.
All right, makes sense. So Kyle leans towards the over on this one. That brings us to our most likely dog to win outright. And I'm not sure if you told Al about that yet, Kyle, but we always pick a dog that's plus 3.5 or worse or better.
Does it matter if it's college or pro?
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. Plus 140-ish, plus 150 or better. I have one, and I'm scared that Kyle's picked the same one. I've been thinking about it all week. Does yours start with a J, Kyle?
No.
Okay, good. If that's the case, I'm going with James Madison at plus 240 this week. I believe that quarterback Todd Centio, and I might just botch his name, will be back for James Madison. I didn't start paying attention to James Madison, I admit, until like 3 or 4 games in. Now they lost last 2 games. Their quarterback got hurt. Marshall, he didn't even play, and there was a massive turnover margin. Louisville is in a nasty sandwich spot, and I know Big Al said there's no look aheads, but Louisville came off a crazy game against Wake Forest where they got 8 turnovers in the second half. What the heck happened? I've never seen anything like that. 6 in 1 quarter for Hartman, their quarterback. I think that was just a little bit too easy for them. And at halftime, Wake was up by a point. It was some poor coaching by Clawson. It blew my mind. But James Madison, a hungry team, they're out to prove that they're well-deserved of being an FBS team, not to mention maybe winning the Sun Belt. I like James Madison at plus 240 as my most likely dog with value to win outright. Kyle, what do you have?
I'm going to take Army against Air Force here this weekend. I think that game is such a low-scoring game, and anything can happen in a game like that. So I'm going to go with a fairly sizable underdog as well. North Texas did win outright last week, so that was a nice hit on about plus 300 or so. I think Army is capable of beating an Air Force team that is really kind of underwhelmed for me. I don't think Air Force has played that well consistently this year. I'm not saying Army will win this game, but I think Army at plus, what is it, 240, 250, something like that, is a good look here in a game that they certainly have potential to win. Army's also gotten a bit healthier. They've had a lot of injuries through the year. So I'm going to take Army here.
Wonderful. Al, you have time to think about this one?
I mean, there's so many good underdogs on this card. It's like, so if I have to, I mean, technically speaking, it's going to be one that's exactly 3.5 because that's going to have the best chance to win outright.
Yeah.
I would say the Memphis Tigers would have to be my choice based on your criteria.
I love it. I was waiting to bet them. I missed the 5 down to the 3.5, but it's sitting at 120 in a lot of these books. So I'm waiting for all the UCF money coming in on this game. I think UCF's in a tough spot, and
I don't think you're going to see any UCF money coming in.
No, probably not. Well, the public usually doesn't take things over, but who knows? Maybe there is some sides that will push USC up. But I agree with you. I like Memphis here. I think they've got a great shot. They're in a great spot here, and UCF on the road is a little bit fraudulent, and they haven't been as good. Real quick, someone's got a Georgia Tech season win total under. This is their last winnable game. Is it wise to consider hedging this week against Virginia Tech? No, I would say no. Sims is out.
What is their bet? They have the over or the under?
They have the under.
They have the under, and this is their last.
They still have 4 games left.
Yeah, I have kind of a hybrid answer. I never hedge bets because I think that's throwing bad money after good. I mean, if you're in a good situation, you just let it ride. That's just my general belief. But if you feel like you have to hedge, if the money is that important to you, then, and if this is, I don't see their future schedule, but if this is actually their only game that they can win, then I would hedge.
Well, are we sure that they can't beat Miami next week at home? Miami has been that bad. Yeah, I'm
looking at the schedule. So if there are other winnable games on the schedule, then I definitely wouldn't hedge. But
I'm saying to the questioner, Caleb, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is their last winnable game or not. Miami's laid some big time eggs so far this year. I would hate to hedge this early. I mean, there's quite a bit of season left.
I 100% agree.
I
also think Georgia Tech is in a pretty decent spot this week. I would consider them at +3.
Yeah, you can't just hedge on it all year long for sure. With Miami on deck, we have no idea what's going to happen with them. And Sims is probable to play, but that doesn't make Georgia Tech a good team. And if it's this late in the year and you're worried about a season win total under, you're probably going to have to chalk that as loss. I would, and just not move on. Sometimes you just got to move on.
Yeah, unless you have some massive amount of money on this, I would just move on too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, great stuff. That's what we have for the week on Better Odds Sports Betting. Al, where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and plays?
It's pretty easy. Just go to bigal.com, and folks who ever want to email me, it's bigal@bigal.com. And yeah.
All right. Check out Big Al, bigal.com. Fantastic website over there. Kyle, where could our listeners and viewers get your great information?
So there's certainly plenty of places to get my information. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. 35-10 in the last 45 college football plays, 11-0 going into the weekend here. So got 4 plays up so far. I think I'm going to load one more play for college football for this weekend. You can get my plays at huntersportspicks.com. You can also get them at Al's site or Kiev's site. So plenty of places to get my information. And we got a big weekend coming up of some great games of college football, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun weekend. But college basketball also starting out, and I love college basketball. I've been working on it all week. Put an article out there on pace changes. I think that's going to be important, at least for the very beginning. And then the efficiency sites catch up pretty quickly. So anything that you do research-wise, you can't get shut down unless injuries and stuff factor into it. So I put an article out there at theoddsbreakers.com. And, of course, we have basketball packages out there. You guys want basketball? We have it. I was 62% in March Madness last year. I'm very proud about that. So kind of hoping for a big basketball season coming up. But check us all out, and we work hard. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you have any questions, obviously send us a message on Twitter. Go get some winners, everyone.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.